welcome to this week's podcast. We are two Pilates teachers and we're on a mission. And this week, our mission is meditation. I'm Philippa Butler.
And I'm Philippa Botrill.
Thank you. So we are talking about meditation this week, Philippa, and I know this is something that both of us try to fit into our busy schedules as much as is possible. And, I think this is something that you and I both are bringing more and more into the teaching that we do. And we have different experiences of being taught by different people. And I just wonder, what is it, do you think, that meditation brings?
Wow. Well, I think it brings such a lot into your life. I mean, I've been meditating regularly for about 8 years now. And it brings, it's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've done all sorts of different forms of meditation, which we'll probably talk a little bit more in detail as we go along. But for me, I did it to calm myself down initially. I did it to stop that constant chatter that was going on in my brain. Just chatter. And I did it as a way really of, de-stressing, relaxing, calming down. And that was my starting point.
Oh, sorry.
It doesn't matter. It's only a phone. Let's just ignore it. What difference does it make? We're not stressed because we meditate.
There you go.
There you go. So I used it as stress relief. Now, I know it has many other benefits. There's the potential for pain reduction. There's the potential to help with certain conditions that, like IBS and things that are really affected by stress and that sort of thing. So there's potential for all sorts of other wonderful benefits. So to start with, I used it for sort of stress relief. But as time went on, I used it, and this will sound a bit sort of woo-woo, I suppose, but I used it to give me the life that I want. So I used it to create the life that I want, and I use it for manifesting what I want in my life and for getting rid of some of the stuff that's holding me back. So it has changed. Along these 8 years, it's been a real journey, and it has changed quite a lot for me.
Yeah, well, I suppose, I know that's something that you do because we've talked about that. But, and certainly for me, my experience has been mostly through yoga specifically. And when we did the Kundalini classes, that was a big part of it, wasn't it? The meditation elements.
A huge part of it. And I think what's so interesting about meditation is how vast it is. So for me, and I suspect most people, I started with 2 or 3 minutes of guided meditation. And I actually started with Sue Cooper. Do you know Sue Cooper?
Oh, yes, a client.
Yeah. She's just wonderful, and she's a meditation teacher. And she gave me one of her CDs, and I started with that. And I probably listened to Sue for a good 6+ months, maybe even longer. And her meditations were great because she'd start at 2 to 3 minutes and build up. And for me, that was perfect because 2 to 3 minutes was all I could cope with at the beginning. And when I used to have conversations with Sue, and she used to say she used to meditate for an hour, and I was like, what? An hour?
Wow.
No way. I can't sit still for an hour, do nothing. And I think a lot of people feel like that. So there are so many little apps out there. If you want to just dip your toe in and have a start, where you can just do a couple of minutes, no longer.
I mean, well, that's right. Start small. If you, with any life change that you're making, isn't it? Start small and dip your toe in. If you set yourself up to fail by expecting to be able to sit still for half an hour meditating from the get-go, then you're never going to do it again, are you?
No, and I think that puts people off. I think people, when I talk to people about meditating, they seem to think they have to do it for ages. and sit there cross-legged and arm and all the rest of it. And there are so many different forms of meditation.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the easiest form, I feel, is the guided one. If you're a complete beginner, guided meditation is fantastic because it's somebody talking to you, and they might just be bringing your focus onto your senses or your breath or something like that. And so that's what you're thinking about. That's what's going on in your mind all the time, is
Mm,
you're counting your breathing or you're focusing on your senses.
that's
And
it.
that's meditation in
Yeah, wow.
its form, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Taking a journey inside, a journey inward, and for that to be a guided, like you say, I think that's something that lots of people don't realize, that you can have somebody who talks you into that state of mind, if you like. Well, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's a state of mind, and that's just as valid to have that. If it cuts out the chatter, the internal shopping list, oh, I've just remembered, whatever, or a feeling, the idea of sitting still, it reminds me of school assembly, when you were sitting still for ages and
Yeah.
then you get an itch or something. And, so the thought of that sometimes is what puts people off. But I think the thing for me as well, though, really is to make the distinction between a deep relaxed state where if you lie on the ground, often you're in danger of nodding off, aren't you?
Mm.
And then that's, although it's beneficial in lots of ways for us to relax and just bring the overall level of arousal of the central nervous system down, the meditation, the benefits that the greatest benefits you get from meditation are to do it in a sort of in a wakeful state, really, aren't they?
Yes, I'm not quite as clear cut on that, I'd say, but yeah, I do agree that meditation is, a deep, relaxed state of awareness. Sometimes, I think if you drop off to sleep and you're having a guided meditation, it's slightly
Oh, yeah.
different
Well,
because you're
maybe, yeah.
still talking to the subconscious mind. So I still feel that you are getting all of the benefits of it. Um, so I don't think it's the end of the world if you drop off to sleep.
So I can lie down, because I really just love
Oh,
lying down
I
to meditate.
meditate always lying down.
Oh, do you? Never sitting up?
Yeah, always lying down. Because for me, that's the best place for me to meditate. And I
Well,
have
that's,
done it sitting up
yeah,
for years as well.
yeah, yeah.
But that's my preferred position. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's right for everyone, but for me, that's where I can really chill out and start to go deeper. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because often people say, what's the difference between mindfulness, meditation, and hypnosis? Because
Mm,
hypnosis and meditation are very, very, very similar.
yeah.
Especially certain types of meditation. So you know that I do the yoga nidra meditation, which is
Yeah.
a deeply guided meditation. It's a form, really, of hypnosis. It's a
Well, it's auto-suggestion,
yeah, it is.
isn't it?
It's auto-suggestion. You're taking people, first of all, into their alpha brainwaves.
Mm.
So you're starting to slow people down, get people into the present. So that's why often you bring them towards their senses, because you're getting them, as soon as you get people to be in the present, you know this, they start to slow down, don't they?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
start to release, move away from stress, and we move into rest and relaxation. So alpha brain waves is where we're trying to get to start with. And then if we're going deeper, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and again, there's no right or wrong, but if we do go deeper, we go into theta brain waves then. And that's the same as, I don't know, like just before you fall asleep, you'll be in theta, won't you?
Mm.
So it's that really deep, deep sense of relaxation, which is why quite often people fall asleep.
Mm.
But if you really are trying to dive deep, deep into your meditation, you get into theta, which is where we're used to being just before we fall asleep. And
That's why you nod off then.
yeah, I'm sure it's why people nod off. But the thing about theta is that's when you go on your internal journey. So with alpha, you're very present. You're in tune with your senses. That's relaxing you. That's taking you into that lovely meditative state, and you're really starting to be in that sort of more spaced out place. But when you go into theta, I think that's where you go on your internal journey. So that's where you can start to look at some of your beliefs, let some of your thoughts and your emotions come up. And you can't ever stop that. So when people say clear our minds, it's not quite true, is it? Because we don't clear our minds, but we step away from them. We become the observer.
Yeah.
Of our chattering mind. Because it doesn't switch off.
Oh, really? No. I mean, so with the yoga training that I'm doing at the moment, he recommends that you are seated with rather than lying down. Which for me, and for lots of people is just not comfortable. I suppose sitting, well, it doesn't really matter whether you're sitting on a chair. It would need to be a very comfortable reclining, a padded sort of a comfy chair, wouldn't it? For me to get totally relaxed. But then, I still haven't really got to the bottom of why we can't lie down.
There's a really strong school of thought that doesn't want you to fall asleep.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
And I think it's because of that, because the chances of you falling asleep in a seated position are pretty close to zero. Well, there's you do something.
Yeah, well, no, it has been known, hasn't it, on an aeroplane.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose you're more likely to fall asleep if you're lying down.
Yes.
So there is a strong school of thought that feels very strongly that you have to be completely awake when you meditate. And to a certain extent, yes, but you don't lose all the benefits. Like I was just saying, if you sleep, if it's guided, you'll lose all the benefits if it's not guided, because you've got nothing to listen to. Nothing's
on the other hand, if you fall asleep, perhaps you just needed a little micro nap, and that's going to do you good too. Isn't it?
It is. It is. It's just your body and your mind saying you are tired. Is it right or wrong? I don't know. It's personal beliefs and personal preference.
Yeah.
For me, I like to lie down.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I do too.
And most of the time, I will lie down. If I want to go into a deep meditative state, I'll lie down. If I'm doing some other type of meditation, then I will sit up. Like when I did the Joe Dispenza, have you heard of him? Yeah. So his meditations, I went to see him in London, and I did his weekend course, and I committed to doing his hour-long meditation for 6 months. And I stuck with it, and I did it. And an hour is a long time. It is a guided meditation, but it is one that you have to do seated, because he's putting in a lot of suggestions about drawing up your energy, and it has to be through a straight spine and all of that sort of thing. So that's a completely different experience and a different type of meditation, and it was fantastic and I loved it, but it meant I had to get up at like 5 a.m. to do it. So after 6 months, I thought, I've enjoyed this, but it's not quite working for me right now.
Yeah. So, an hour, that is such a long time, isn't it?
It's such a long time. And he used it in different ways. Like he had really loud music, dramatic music, almost like music that you would love. Almost like classical music that, really sort of gets you sort of going, I suppose. And he does this, it's quite amusing in lots of ways, because he does a booming voice. So whatever microphone he's using, it makes his voice seem like this. So it really puts you in a different place, because a lot of his meditation is sort of going into outer space and that type of thing. But yeah, really interesting experience. And I would just experiment.
Yeah, I think that sounds. It's certainly. I mean, I'm a creature of habit. It's funny. I mean, we are all creatures of habits, aren't we,
Yeah.
at the end of the day? But I'm very much a creature of habit, and so I found that I just really enjoyed listening to Deepak Chopra. You know,
Yeah,
you've heard
he's
of him,
great.
and he has the online meditation, and it's quite regularly that he does a free offering, and so there's one on at the moment which sadly I'm just not managing to fit it in every day like I would have really wanted to. But I just, the sound of his voice, I just love the sound of his voice, and
Yeah,
the stuff he says, and
yeah,
then so he then uses mantra and the time alone, if you like, with nothing but a bit of tinkly music in the background, no booming voices or
yeah.
film emotive music. It's all the tinkly sort of music in the background. But
And the
I
mantra's
no
very
doubt.
important, isn't it?
Yeah,
What's the
well, so
mantra
that,
like?
I mean, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
aspect, isn't it? Like you say, of the variety of meditation that's on offer.
It's more sort of transcendental, isn't it, that one?
Well, yeah,
You know, where
and
you use
I
the
mean, the words have a meaning, and
mm,
that you're evoking, whether it's a feeling or a circumstance situation with this mantra. But it's kind of, for me, it's just, I'm laughing because he leaves you for about 15 minutes to lie there quietly, and you're supposed to repeat the mantra to help you from going off into the monkey mind.
yeah, yeah.
And then I'm partway through and I've forgotten what it was. And I'm like, so then I have to go back to one that I can remember, you know, like just a made up one. Not made up, but, you know, a more familiar one, I suppose. Because
Yeah,
sometimes it's a full sentence and you're like, you've lost your thread
yeah.
completely.
Abs-
But you know, and then sometimes I nod off, obviously, because I'm lying on the ground and it's it's 2:30 in the afternoon and I can't stay awake. But for me, it really, really helps with my insomnia. I've told you this before,
yeah,
haven't I?
yeah, absolutely. And they've
Mm,
done loads of research, haven't they, on, you know, the effects of meditation.
mm,
Uh, and things like insomnia, IBS, like we were saying, ones the things that issues that are sort of where
mm.
stress affects it really badly.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what meditation is doing, isn't it? It's calming
Mm,
us down.
mm,
It's taking us away from stress. And so fantastic to do that sort of thing. And it's really interesting because I did a whole Ziva meditation course as well.
what?
Um,
Zebra?
Ziva
Oh, zebra.
meditation.
Okay.
That was interesting because that was mantra based. But she pulled a lot of things together. So she, you know, started off with the senses and then a mantra based where she leaves you with your mantra, just like Deepak does for 15 minutes. But with hers, we were using the same mantra, which is brilliant because you can't
Oh,
forget it then.
yeah.
And
No.
really short, like 2 words or something. It might be as simple as I am, you know. I like that because I can't forget it. And stay there for 15 minutes. And then at the end, she does her manifesting bit.
Ah,
She pulled like all these different types of meditation together and
into one.
created her own thing. And
Oh,
I really enjoyed that as well. I loved that one. Um, that was a really good experience, and I did that for when I sort of play with a meditation. I do it for at least 6 months, and just find out, does this suit me? And what I found is different meditations, different meditation techniques have suited me at different times in my life. So my advice is play around. You know, we are changing and we are evolving, and as we change
mm.
and evolve, we need different types of meditation. So experience.
I mean, it's different strokes for different folks, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
I think the thing I find is, and I've said this to you before, that the meditation with regards to helping my insomnia, it doesn't help right away. It's a bit like medication that you have to take for a while before it actually starts to work. And so, in my experience, it's usually a week or possibly a little bit longer before it starts to work. And then, similarly, you get to a place where you think you can stop. And then, for about 2 weeks, I find the effects will persist. And then after the 2 weeks is over, then the effect actually for me starts to decline. And so maybe, you know, for whatever reason, you know, maybe stressing, whatever it is, stress that's still around me, or, you know, but so it is a bit like taking a tablet, you know, that you've got to keep taking it. And
yeah, it's like everything, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to meditate once and become this incredibly chilled out person. Just like you're not going to do a Pilates exercise once and have a strong core. You know, we have to do it consistently. I mean, we know this. Anything that we do consistently will achieve long-term results, won't it? And then you get to a stage where you might be able to miss a few days with having no side effects, like you said, maybe up to 2 weeks. But if you then don't ever go back to it, you won't then get those benefits back, because they start to wane a bit, just like with exercise. You know, you can have a few days off, a week off, 2 weeks off if you're going on holiday, but you have to then go back, you know, to start it all again, you know, and get those benefits back again.
And I think maybe it doesn't take quite as long then to get back to that place. Oh, yeah, this was something really I heard, and I've been using this quite a bit about, you know, when we're trying to change something, think of the blacksmith. You know, if you're making the horseshoe and you've got the furnace going and the metal's red hot and you're banging on it and it starts to mold and change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then if he leaves it for a week and he comes back to it, it's like starting all over again. You know, so we've got to maintain these sorts of practices, and like you say, you can have a day off or maybe up to a week, but ideally, and not to necessarily have to do it every day. Once you get to a stage, the maintenance stage, I suppose, isn't it? Once you get to that stage.
I think so, and I also think that we have to, you know, because if people think you've got to do it every day, that puts everybody off. But also you have to think, oh, meditation is this huge thing. So, you know, I know you do a lot of walking like I do, and if you're walking by yourself and just, you know, enjoying the countryside, that is meditative. You know, that in itself is a nice meditative state to get into. Now it's a low one, it's a light one, it's not deep. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. You're not aiming to go into some deep meditative state every time you do some meditation. So just sometimes doing stuff like, for me, when I do my art and get really involved into it, it gives me that same sort of feeling that I get from doing meditation.
Yeah.
Again, it's that lighter state, but it's just as beneficial.
It's getting, I think it is different, isn't it, when we get into something so much that we lose ourselves, and that can be so many different things.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its benefits. It is different though, isn't it? It's slightly different.
It is slightly different because you know, we're usually doing something when often when we're meditating, we're being still. But why does meditation have to be still? You know, if you think of meditation as being able to step back from your chattering mind, observe what's going on in your head rather than let that take control of you, so have no emotion attached to the thoughts, then something like, I don't know, for me it's art, for you it might be music, something like that does the same thing, doesn't it, almost? And I bet if they did some MRI scans on your brain, the same parts would light up. I bet they would. I don't know that.
Well, I suppose thinking about playing the piano, that definitely transports me to a different place when I do that. So yeah, like I couldn't get there when you were thinking of painting, because that's definitely not in my skill set.
But I can't play the piano.
There you go. Yeah, so I suppose now you put it that way, it makes me it helps me to see how doing something that we that channels that part of us can be so beneficial. Yeah, I mean it is a barrier if you think you have to be still, be quiet, and have a long time to do it, because that's just not something that's realistic for so many people, is it?
It isn't, and I really don't believe it's true either.
Mm.
And then one other thing that I think has been great is occasionally we've done a few mass meditations, groups of meditations. And that is so powerful. There is something so special about meditating with other people. And we've done it quite a few times at Balance. We do it in the 3E groups, but we also did a big mass meditation with Cuppa, because she does one where they get global mass meditation going, which is fantastic. And there is something really powerful about it. And they did that. Experiment, didn't they? When was it? In the 70s. Can you remember it? What was it called? The Maharishi effect.
Oh yeah, well, Philippa, I was probably a bit young then. I have heard what you said, the Maharishi effect.
But where they got, a group of people, mass people meditating, and they worked out that if you could get 1% of the population in an area, say in London, 1% of people in London meditating, the crime rate drops by 16%. And that's what this experiment was all about. I mean, getting 1% of people meditating at the same time is quite difficult, obviously.
Yeah.
But what an amazing thing that is. If we could all meditate together, then the effects on global health and well-being and niceness and crime and everything going down would be just fantastic.
Yeah, wouldn't it just?
I mean, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Because they've done that. They did that experiment, and you can Google it, and it's all there for everybody to read about.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment, with the situation as it stands, that people are reaching out for things to help them get through this current crisis. People are realizing the world's shifted to the side, and that this new normal, I was, where was I today? Oh, I went out on my bike and I saw somebody giving a driving lesson, and they're all wearing masks. Jack, my youngest, he's currently started driving lessons, and so you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And it's just like so alien, this whole, I mean, it's so messing with my mind, the fact that if this goes on for any period of time, and how things are just not the same in so many different ways for so many different people, that that this really is a time when using these sorts of techniques could really help so many people.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think, meditation is really powerful and can help us all through these times, because there's still scary times for us all. It's still loads of uncertainty. And this mask wearing is, like you say, it's quite scary, and you worry about the long-term effects. I worry about, Scarlett, my granddaughter's 6, and she's going to school, and they're social distancing, and they're in a little bubble and all of this. And at that age where you're so tactile, they're so cuddly, they're so, you're learning to read body language, and you respond by seeing people smile and whatever. And I just think, wow, if they're having that all the time, where they're not allowed to touch, that, you can't see, I mean, they're not wearing masks in school.
Oh, I don't know.
Thank goodness. But, even if you're seeing a lot of people with masks on, you can't tell their facial expressions. You can't tell whether people are smiling, really, can you? Mm-hmm. It's a scary thing for them to grow up with that, because I worry about it subduing their natural instincts, to be so affectionate and physically touching, physically hugging each other. Whereas
it's like, it's like being part of a controlled experiment, isn't it, really?
It is, isn't it?
Well, yeah, so many people doing this, having to take these measures. We don't know the ramifications. And I'm not seeing any good ones really myself.
It's just like you say, I mean, you know, it is necessary and we all know what we've got to do, but it is scary and it's changing. It has the potential to change human nature a bit.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
this younger generation, you know, before the age of 7, you just absorb everything.
Well, and so
Yeah.
this whole, I mean, we're going a bit off the topic. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not. This whole anxiety, it's very anxiety making, isn't it? All of this. And
Really,
so
really
we
anxiety.
know that children who grow up with, you know, with that a level of anxiety, it sort of really is influential on the development of the brain,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
I agree. And I also think because children think differently, obviously, to adults,
mm,
that sometimes we have to make sure that we're really explaining things to them
yeah,
because it's so scary for them otherwise,
mm,
you know, and they don't understand what it is.
mm,
And it was just like we'd had some builders outside, as you know, in the garden. They dropped a crisp packet, you know. Sometimes they do drop the odd
you
bit
do
of
drop
rubbish.
the odd thing, yes, they do.
And Scarlett had come round to see me, and she goes, "Oh, look, Mama, rubbish in the garden," you know. And I said, "Oh, can you pick it up and put it in the bin?" And she said, "Oh, "No, of course not. Coronavirus," you know. And I thought, wow. And she was genuinely shocked and
Mm.
horrified that I suggested she picked it up. Now, I had been there for a while, so she was probably perfectly safe. But you know, it's drummed into them, isn't it? It's so drummed into them.
Yeah.
And I know they have to be safe, and I know we have to protect people. But I think we've also got to be a bit careful that we don't frighten children to death with it all.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you know, I watched, speaking of children, I recall watching a television program about children with ADHD being introduced to meditation as a
Oh,
tool to
yeah.
manage their symptoms. You might have seen it. It was last year or maybe the year before. And I mean, you at first when they tried to get these children to sit in a circle, it really was not happening. But you know, by the end, the
Yeah.
parents were astounded that they were actually able to do it. And you know, I think it's a bit like they would have been able to feel, the children would have kind of noticed that it made them feel better doing it, and so then they would start to feel a bit more compliant, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So you know, it's never too soon, is it, to think about these kinds of techniques
It's
with
never.
children? Or
Yeah, and also they brought it into schools, didn't they, quite a bit, where instead of punishing children, they brought meditation instead of detention in.
ah,
And they said the behavioural changes in children and adolescents were amazing.
yeah.
And they are bringing mindfulness into school now more and more, aren't they? Which I think is a wonderful thing. Because if you can get them really young into these sorts of habits,
Mm.
then they'll just use these tools as they get older. And to them, it's completely normal. Instead of, you know, when did I come into meditation? In my 40s.
Yeah.
You know, then it's something that I'm having to think about and learn and do. And I've got all of these sort of preconceived ideas about it and all the rest of it.
Mm.
Imagine if we'd been meditating since we were 5 at school or even earlier.
Well, that's it. And you notice it when they do all these travel programs, cultural influences in the way in which people are, you know, the expectations as you go through your life, you know, the Chinese in the park doing the qigong and whatever else, and how that's just so very normal,
Yeah.
you know, for them as a culture. And I know, you know, my boys, bless them, they have to put up with a lot from me. You know this. And and so I'm always, you know, spouting the I should say espousing the benefits of these mindful type practices, physical practices, you know, whatever it is, whenever I've got a captive audience, I'll be but and of course my youngest at 17, he's quite disparaging of all of this stuff, any of this and all of it,
Which is
but my
quite normal.
20-year-old,
Yeah.
he's a lot more cooperative, I suppose. He always was, is the thing. And so now I'm introducing the yoga to him. And the other day, because I'm practicing teaching the yoga, I was teaching him, and I said, "Oh, how did you find it?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it was a really good stretch." And and I thought, well, if that's what it was, then that's fantastic, because for a young, he's 6'2", stiff as a plank.
Yeah.
For him to have this exposure now, and I said, this is so good for someone like you. I said, and so many men, actually, I think probably more men do yoga than they do Pilates, actually.
Yes, well, I think it's because they're more used to it and they think of it as a flexibility type thing. But it's great if they sort of embrace well, I don't want to say spiritual side of it, but if they embrace the meditation side of it, the relaxation, the de-stressing. And it's interesting because my son, when he was at university, everybody in his house, the 6 people in their house, meditated together during their exams. They made it a thing that they did. And, he loved it. He said it helped him so much with exam stress. And it was so wonderful that these are like 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and they're sitting there and they were meditating together, and they were doing it, every night to help them through their exams. And it was just fabulous. And I thought, wow, we've got to get the young people to do it. It's just fun. It's just great for them.
No, I think, and do you know what? I actually think this generation is probably going to be more open to it than older generations, the likes of us, because it's been around so much more, hasn't it? So maybe, our concerns are unfounded, and that they are going to all have this in their lives, because society as a whole is becoming less, more open to all these kinds of approaches.
Much more open, absolutely. It's not seen as so out there anymore, is it?
No. And the science, I suppose that comes now because the science around a lot of the techniques is starting to be, and ever since they can do a functional MRI of the brain and see what the brain is doing in real time, then that really starts to dispel some of the myths or inform.
It does, because those of us people that are more analytical, like you were saying, who have been really dubious, now they see the scientific evidence. They're like, okay, there maybe is something in that, and so it just becomes more acceptable and more mainstream, and people stop thinking of everybody as a bit out there when they do it. Some meditations are more out there than others. But so what? What you find one that suits yourself, don't you?
Well, that's it. I think, absolutely, and don't be put off if your first experience isn't a fantastical, life-changing experience, because there's not many of those.
Hey, come on. Of course, if they're going to come to one of our meditations, it will be fantastical and life-changing.
Fantastical and
fantastical. But it's just so worth a try, and you do it at the end of your mindful movement classes. You do some relaxation meditation, and I do yoga nidra on a Tuesday. Just come and give it a go.
Come and give it a go.
Come and give it a go, and then if it's not for you, it's not for you. But at least you've had an experience of it.
Yeah, like I say, if you've never tried broccoli, how do you know you don't like it?
And we've said that so many times.
I love saying that. I'm not going to stop saying it just because I've said it once. So I think on that note, these good people have heard enough from us.
I think they have. So please come and try your meditation. You might not enjoy it, but just at least give it a go.
Give it a go.
Exactly.
And have a great day.
Yeah.
Next time.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.